Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Radha Madhava Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Shri Radha Madhava ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Please recite along with me. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayi. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, personality of Godhead, whose praise with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So good morning, everybody. Hare Krishna. Happy to be here with all of you in person and, as I'm learning, online. Many Bhagavatam listeners at a distance. So thank you all for your kind attention. As of yesterday, we concluded the epic battle between Lord Varahadev, the incarnation of Krishna as a boar, and the ferocious asura called Hiranyaksha. And at this point, we're zooming out again, and this is chapter 20 of Canto 3, and we are hearing about... No problem. And we're hearing about Shaunaka Rishi speaking with Sutta around the assembled sages in Naimisharanya forest, which we started the whole Bhagavatam with. By the way, I was just reminded that for those of you online who don't know who I am, or in person who don't know who I am, my name's Brhat-Mrdanga Das, and I help to supervise the Krishna House projects around North America, so I come here to try to serve Nanda Braja and Drishtadyumna in their sincere effort to make Western outreach possible in Dallas. So, I don't personally find my mind is captured just reading the translation, so I was thinking just do a quick summary and then we can go on and have some discussion. So I'll just review. Sutta Goswami is Shaunaka Rishi, as the head of the assembled sages in the forest of Naimisharanya, he is asking, okay, so now Lord Varahadev, he has put the earth back in its orbit, because you'll remember, the earth had fallen into the ocean of Garbhodaka, which is filling the bottom half of each universe. And so Lord Varahadev went and picked it up and placed it back. And so Shaunaka Rishi is asking, so now what happened? Now that the earth is back, what did Swayambhuva Manu do to help people on the path of enlightenment? And then he glorified Vidura and wanted to know more about his conversation with Maitreya. He said Vidura is such a wonderful person. He's a great devotee of Krishna, and he actually left his home because Duryodhana was such a cruel person and shot vicious words at Vidura. And Vidura said, you know what? I've been trying to help and it's not working, so I'm going to go. I'm going to go check out the holy places and absorb myself in Krishna consciousness. And so he left. And he was born of Vyasadeva. And Shaunaka says that he's not less than Vyasadeva himself, this great sage who actually compiled the Bhagavatam and all the Vedas. And so then he asks, what did he inquire from Maitreya Rishi, the sage? And he says that when devotees come together and speak, they must have talked about Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. That's just what happens, right? Krishna says in the Gita, Machchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantas chamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. That what do pure devotees do? They always have their mind absorbed in Krishna. Bodhayanta parasparam, they're always enlightening each other and sharing their realizations and what they've heard about Krishna. And as a result of doing this, tushyanti ramanti, they feel great happiness and satisfaction. So hopefully, those of you listening in, as I attempt whatever feeble attempt I'm able, if you feel satisfaction and bliss, that means that we're doing the process right. That means I'm properly representing Srila Prabhupada by just repeating what I've heard, and you all are properly being listeners by giving your kind attention. So Bhagavatam class should be a great joy every morning. Unfortunately, for myself, it's not always that way. So we have to go on. Nashta prayeshwa bardarshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. We go on every day, and gradually we will get the taste for it. So Shonaka says, I've got to hear about what these pure devotees talked about. It must have been wonderful. They must have talked about the unlimited Supreme Lord. And hearing about this is just like bathing in a holy river, that it purifies you from all your karma, from all your wrong activities in the past. So we should bathe ourselves in the sound vibration of Krishna's holy names and the explanations of his activities in the Bhagavatam. And then he says, what kind of devotee would be satisfied, satiated by hearing the pastimes of Krishna? So if we are sitting in Bhagavatam class, or if we are reading Prabhupada's books in our free time, if we're hearing some lecture, and we're feeling, I've heard this before, or if we're feeling, I wish I were doing something else, then Shonaka Rishi is saying, what kind of devotee are we? And I'm speaking for myself. I'm not here to point fingers. I'm part of I am not at the stage where I can fully relish Bhagavatam all the time. But he's making this rhetorical question here that should make us think, what kind of devotee am I if I'm not able to fully enjoy sitting in a Bhagavatam class every morning? I've got some work to do. And so we will discuss today how we can get to that stage of always relishing. So then, Sutta Goswami, who is always absorbed in thinking about Krishna, then he says, please listen to what I'm about to say. And we see this again and again in the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, that the speaker is encouraging the listeners, saying, please listen. So why would you say that?
You're about to say something important.
Yeah, you're about to say something important, and maybe you're half asleep, maybe your mind is somewhere else. So the speaker says, please listen, to again catch your mind and say, this is very important. Please pay attention. So he says what happened next is that after hearing this whole pastime of Varahadev, then Vidura inquired as follows. He said, and this is the verse we will cover in more detail, he said, O Maitreya, you know things that we can't see. You are a seer of the truth. And so would you please enlighten us and tell us what happened next? What did Brahma do to help populate the universe now that the earth was back in orbit? And more specifically, how did the Prajapatis, these progenitors, how did they populate and fill up the universe? And then Maitreya begins explaining about the creation of the universe, which is extraordinary. And we hear it again and again, and we can get a little bored by it sometimes. We can think, again, we're hearing about the creation of the universe, all right. And it can get really technical sometimes. But actually it's amazing if you really think about it. Who else knows about this? We hear of creation stories in different traditions, right? And they're always interesting. But what a complex, amazing understanding we have, a scientific understanding we have of how the elements of material nature are created, how the unlimited Supreme Lord Krishna expands himself, and then that expansion expands themselves, and that expansion expands themselves, and then we have Mahavishnu, who, just while he's sleeping, when you take a nap, what happens? Maybe we drool, maybe we are just totally unconscious. And when Krishna sleeps, when Vishnu sleeps, what does he do? Unlimited universes come out of his body. How amazing is that? And he's so unlimited that this expansion of an expansion of an expansion of Krishna then unlimitedly expands himself. And in every single universe, he becomes Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And he lays down, anyway, I won't go through the whole thing. But it's amazing, right? We should really be captivated by this. Wow, Krishna is so unlimited. So my tiny problems, no problem for Krishna. So Maitreya Rishi then goes on in a few verses to explain how eventually these universes which come from Mahavishnu are like an egg. They're shaped like an egg. And specifically, a shining egg, which lays in the waters of the causal ocean in a lifeless state. So, for actually 1,000 years, I didn't know this before, but when Mahavishnu exhales, all these universes come from him, these egg-like universes, and they sit in the causal ocean for 1,000 years. And then he expands and enters himself as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And that's where our section ends today. Tomorrow we'll hear more about how Brahma comes from each Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. So are there any thoughts or questions on this much before we go on to the verse? Yes, Lakshmi Priya, can we have the microphone passed to her, please?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Haribo.
Haribo.
So my question is, when you say 1,000 years, is that 1,000 Earth years?
Ah, good question. Let's see if Prabhupada answers that here. Otherwise, I don't know. Yeah, he does not say, but the Sanskrit says Varsha Sahasram, 1,000 years. So yeah, I'm sorry I can't say conclusively. If anyone wants to do some research, let us know later, that would be great. Okay, text 9. So before we recite this, let's just highlight a few words that we might know, and then we can think about the meaning as we chant. I find that a lot more effective for myself. Otherwise, I can kind of mindlessly do the chanting. So, any words you all recognize here? Common words? Brahman, okay. Yep. And actually, interestingly here, that's not talking about what we usually think. The translation is, O holy sage. So this is Vidura speaking to Maitreya as Brahman. What else? Praja, which means? Yeah, it means the people. But specifically here is Prajapati. Prajapati Pati, which is the father of the Prajapatis, who is Brahma. Yeah. Okay, anything else? You'll recognize any other words here? Uvacha, yeah. Said, Vidura said. And? Me. Okay. We have some ideas. I'll read the translation one time just so we can think about the meaning as we chant. Vidura said, "Since you know of matters inconceivable to us, tell me, O holy sage, what did Brahma do to create living beings after evolving the Prajapatis, the progenitors of living beings?" Okay. We can do the Sanskrit. Vidura uvacha Prajapati pati srishtva Praja sarge prajapatin Kim arabhatta me brahman Prabruhya vyaktamargavit Prajapati pati srishtva Praja sarge prajapatin Kim arabhatta me brahman Prabruhya vyaktamargavit. Please chant, dear devotees. prajapatin kim adabhuta me brahman prabruhya vyaktamargavit vidura uvacha prajapati pati srishtva kim adabhatta me brahman kim adabhu. Yes, marga means path. Yeah, well done. Anyone else? Okay. We can read these together. Vidura uvacha, Vidura said, Prajapati Pati, Lord Brahma, Srishtva, after creating, Praja Sarge, for the purpose of creating living beings, Prajapatin, the Prajapatis, Kim, what? Adabhata, started, Me, to me, Brahman, O holy sage, Prabruhi, tell, Avyaktamargavit, knower of that which we do not know. Okay. Would somebody like to read the purport?
Purport, please. Significant here is the word avyaktamargavit, one who knows that which is beyond our perception. To know matters beyond one's perception, one has to learn from a superior authority in the line of disciplic succession. Just to know who is our father is beyond our perception. For that, the mother is the authority. Similarly, we have to understand everything beyond our perception from the authority who actually knows. The first, avyaktamargavit, or authority, is Brahma, and the next authority in disciplic succession is Narada. Maitreya Rishi belongs to that disciplic succession, so he also is avyaktamargavit. Anyone in the bona fide line of disciplic succession is avyaktamargavit, a personality who knows that which is beyond ordinary perception.
Thank you. So this word is interesting. Avyaktamargavit. So avyakta means unmanifest or unclear, unseen. Marga is the path. Vit is one who knows. So Vidura is calling Maitreya one who knows the unseen path. Isn't that interesting? So it's like if you want to get to your destination driving, then you pull out your phone and you look at Google Maps. And you can see very clearly on there that the line where you should drive. And it even gives you alternate routes to get to the same destination. But when you don't have your phone, you can't see that, right? It's not like there's lines drawn on the ground that are pointing where you need to drive. So it's actually unseen for someone who doesn't have the eyes of a smartphone. So without that, it's very difficult. Without this vision coming from this technology. And in the same way, we need to consult 3 authorities in order to make sure we're going the right way. We need to consult the Guru, we need to consult the Shastra, and we need to consult sadhus, other advanced devotees. And in this way we can make sure that we're on the right trajectory. Because the fact of the matter is that there are 2 types of beings. There's conditioned souls, nitya baddha, which means that we're eternally bound up in material energy. And then there's nitya mukta souls, which are eternally liberated. and they are not affected by material energy, and they can see clearly. So we have to understand that what is our position? This is called sambandha. It means knowing my relationship with the Supreme. And in our current situation, in the material world, we're conditioned by material energy. We're blind. We're not able to see. We're like someone trying to go somewhere without an iPhone or without a map. We don't know where to go. We don't know what's right and wrong. Isn't it? Don't we all do things every day that aren't good for us, that are self-destructive? Don't we make decisions that are not for our best interest or for the best interest of others? So we don't know how to properly act in every moment because we are still conditioned by material energy, and it makes us blind to making the right choices. So we need to find someone who can see this unseen path. They have a vision which is beyond what we have. Like there's the analogy of a person tied up with rope, and who can untie someone who's tied up? They have to be themselves untied. They have to have their hands free. So Krishna explains, I believe yesterday we talked about this verse, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshina. So same meaning here, essentially, tattva darshina. Krishna says we need to find somebody who has darshan, who has vision of tattva, of the truth. And how do we interact with that person? Nanda Braja was kindly explaining that we should serve them and inquire from them in a submissive spirit. But we have to know who the right person is, right? You can't just go to anybody and ask for spiritual guidance. You'll get in a lot of trouble. Nowadays, if you have enough followers on Instagram, people take you as an authority, right? No? Oh, they've got 100,000 followers and they're saying spiritual knowledge. Then people will just accept what they say without considering the source of it. Or just because you published a book and it's written down on paper, then it must be true. So it's an unfortunate situation. Prahlad says that it's blind leading the blind. And what happens when a blind person leads another blind person? They fall. They trip over and fall into a ditch, he says. So we need to find someone who has actual vision of spiritual knowledge and isn't just pretending to have vision of spiritual knowledge. Which is tough when you're blind, right? So what a predicament we're in. We're blind and we're trying to find someone who's not blind, but we're blind and we can't properly distinguish. So what do you do in this conundrum? What do you all say? If you're blind and you're trying to find someone not blind, someone can say, oh yeah, I can see, but you don't have the eyes to see if they are actually able to see. So what do you do?
I was thinking of two things. You can pray to
Okay.
the Lord for help.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can try different things, which I'm not saying is a very good answer.
You
but
experiment.
Yeah, you experiment.
Okay. All right, that's nice. We know that if someone has sincere spiritual understanding, they can figure out that, okay, God is all-powerful, He's all-knowing, He's my friend, I'm blind here, and I'm trying to figure it out. Wouldn't He help me if I call out to Him, if I pray to Him? Actually, there's a verse in the 11th canto which is amazing. It says, on the path of bhakti, you can run at full speed, blind, and never trip and fall. Isn't that amazing? So it doesn't mean we're not going to make mistakes sometimes because we are imperfect. But what does it mean? It means that Krishna will take care of everything we need. Yoga kshemam vahamyaham. He says that what you have, I'll preserve that. And what you don't have, I'll provide for you. And he says that those who are serving me with love, priti purvakam, then I'll give them intelligence so they can come back to me. So he will enlighten the path for us. But it's scary when you're blind and trying to walk. Have you tried to do that before? Have you ever tried just to close your eyes and walk a few steps? And you're always on edge thinking, when am I going to bump into something? Or what if I trip? So that's our situation. Unfortunately, we get really proud. We think we get a little knowledge and we think, yep, I've got it figured out. Right? Do you all have this experience? Or just me? We think, I don't need any help. We don't want to take guidance. We might have a guru. We might have mentors. But how much do we really take shelter of them? How much do we really seek their instruction, their guidance? And how much do we say, yeah, I've got it figured out? So, actually remembering that we're blind is really helpful. Why is it helpful to remember your weakness, your being incapacitated? How is it helpful? If you want to say something, I'll repeat it. You remain humble. Yeah, right. If you are strong and fit and healthy and beautiful and rich, then it's very easy to not be humble. But if you are lacking these things, it's very easy to be humble. But our existential situation is that actually we're like a drop of water on a lotus leaf. Kamala dala jala jivanatala mala. In this beautiful bhajan, we're reminded of our situation. We're just like a tiny drop of water on a leaf of a lotus. And what happens when there's even a slight breeze? Whew, that drop is gone. So that's our position. We're in such a fragile position. Any moment, our life could totally change. We can lose our life. COVID started and nobody knew it would happen. A war just started in Russia and Ukraine recently. Another war just started in Israel. We have no idea. And with the political situation in America right now, we have no idea how quickly things will change. So, remembering our situation, remembering the fragility will make us attentive, right? Like when you're walking blindfolded, you're always on edge. Am I going to hit the wall? Am I going the right way? So if we're in this understanding that we're in a fragile position, we'll be very cautious to make sure we're taking the right steps. You're going to say something?
I was going to say the interesting thing is when you're blind and you don't think you're blind, you actually are more blind.
Interesting.
So like, if you accept that you're blind, then you can start using tools to help you get through what you're, like a blind person, they grab a stick, and they have dogs or something like that. They say, okay, this is my situation. But if you're like, no big deal, stuff, and you just like, you don't start to comprehend the things you can do to help your situation or get better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking in the example I gave, someone walking with a blindfold, they would blame everyone else. Maybe you're walking around, you bump into a wall. What are you doing, wall? Who put that wall there? I know where I'm going. Or you bump into someone else and blame the other person. So, yeah, it's an embarrassing situation if we don't recognize that we're blind. And actually the Sri Ishopanishad explains that one who has no knowledge goes to a dark place. Ignorance leads to darkness. Ignorance is darkness. But one who has so-called knowledge actually goes to a darker place. It's kind of like what you're saying. Because someone who thinks they have real knowledge and is misleading themselves and others, they're cheating. And they're actively directing people in the wrong way. So isn't that worse than just being totally ignorant and, in a sense, innocent? That, life is meant to enjoy. You should get a nice job and have a good career and family, and that's the whole purpose, and there's nothing more. But if you don't know anything more, then course, we're ultimately responsible for being in that situation. But it's better than someone saying, you worship me, I'm God. Give me all your money, and exploit them. So it's much worse.
If you were asking directions from somebody and they really didn't know, but they told you go this way, and then you went 3 miles that way and you figured out finally you're going the wrong way, they've actually messed you up by going 3 miles the wrong way. Instead of just being like, you know what, I'm not sure, maybe you should ask somebody different. Like they've actually made it worse.
Yes, right. So an important principle that's coming out here is truthfulness on the part of the seeker, on the part of the blind, and on the part of the one who's not blind. But the fact is, at the beginning, because we're blind, we have to take a leap of faith. We don't know. So we experiment. We pray and we experiment. That was really nice instructions you gave. So we pray out to Krishna. I don't exactly know what I'm doing, but I believe that you are there and you can guide me. And if I go the wrong way, you will redirect me. And I'm going to just try this out. I'm going to try it out. And so all of us here, in one way or another, we are experimenting with the path of bhakti. Or we're taking our experiment really far, and we've been doing this for years, and we have the guidance of a spiritual master. But still, surrender is a constant process, isn't it? So you can't just kick back and say, yep, my guru saved me. He's got it covered. I'm just going to enjoy, and he'll take me back to Godhead. No. We have to constantly work. We have to constantly show that we are sincere. Like Vidura. What an exalted soul is Vidura. And he's asking questions that he obviously knows the answer to. But he's setting the example for us that we should always be inquiring, always be in this humble, submissive mood of learning and advancing. And if we're just sincere, then our experiments will lead us in the right direction. If we just develop more and more confidence in Krishna, we take a leap of faith by trusting someone who claims to be a spiritual master. We learn from the scriptures what is a spiritual master. We observe them. Are they doing what the scriptures are saying? And gradually, as you learn from them, follow their instructions, it works, then you can get a little more faith, and like that you can go on building your relationship and becoming a seer yourself, not blind, not bound. So we have about 10 minutes. I'd love to hear additions from the rest of you here on being blind, on finding a seer. Yes, Drish. Okay, let's go Claudia and then Drishtaduna.
So from the perspective of a person who thinks or feels their dharma is to guide others, and you belong to an institution, no, a parampara lineage, how do you know when you are ready to start guiding others? Is that something that your guru or your guide tells you, okay, you can start now, you're ready, you know the scriptures? Like, how is that measured?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And the other question is, if you are not part of a guru system, how do you know you're being honest with people, right? Like, you're ready. For example, like Sadhguru, very famous, right? He claims he never read the Gita, he never read anything. He gets all his knowledge from source, apparently, no? So how do we know that we are being honest with ourselves?
Okay. Nice questions. Thank you so much. So how do we know when we're ready to teach? And if someone claims to be a teacher but they don't follow scripture, how can we be sure that they are a bona fide, legitimate teacher? Okay. So we have the standing order, all of us, to be teachers. And Lord Chaitanya says, Yaradeka Tareka Krishna Upadesh. Amaragyai Guruhaya Tara Edesh. He says, wherever you go, with everybody you meet, just tell them what you've learned from Bhagavatam, from Bhagavad Gita. And in this way, you're a guru. And you can help to free people from materialism. But the key is being honest and not making stuff up. So if we just share what we've heard, we can quote it, that's better. Then we can share whatever we know. And in that way, we can teach. And we can do it honestly. If we try to share more than we know, then it gets dangerous. And as far as being in a formal position of teaching, that would come from a guru. They would say, yes, you're ready. I'd like you to formally accept students. And I'd like you to, and there, in ISKCON, there's a whole process for taking on that service. That's a little bit others might add. And then the other question, if somebody is claiming to be a spiritual teacher but not following any scriptures, then they're not a legitimate teacher, actually. They will mislead people. Because how can you confirm what's true? Just like even in law, if someone goes to court, what do the lawyers do? They quote the previous law cases, and they quote previous judgments. So, someone who is a guru says the same thing as the scriptures do, and they also say the same thing that other practitioners do. That's why we say, at the beginning I was explaining, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. This is the checks and balances system to make sure that we don't deviate. Those are some thoughts. Any other additions to that, to these questions before we go on to Drishtadyumna? Okay, Mike.
I was appreciating your point that if we're repeating what we hear, then we can teach.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are put in situations sometimes where we're not a guru who's accepting disciples in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But for instance, you're sitting on that chair teaching us right now.
Mm-hmm.
But why are you doing it? It's because you're speaking what Srila Prabhupada said, what you've heard from other acharyas. And so we'll be put into situations to teach and stuff, but we should be prepared by studying and understanding the philosophy.
Yes.
I appreciate that point.
Thank you. So Drishtadyumna had something?
I just had a small comment. I appreciated you were talking about how you're blind and then you're looking who can see. I need someone who can see because I'm blind. And then eventually if you follow the process, you can see. And then now it's your job to help other people who can't see.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a chain.
Yes. Or another analogy I like is there's a pandemic of materialism, and someone who's healthy, who has the cure for it, the vaccine, if they're kind, they'll share it. And so you don't have to do anything more than just pass on what you've been given. Yeah, thank you, Drishtadyumna. So other additions or subtractions?
I wanted to add that, we can teach by different means too, not just by quoting scriptures. We can teach in how we act.
Yes.
And if we're, as a matter of fact, I've heard that when we're considered Brahmins, what somebody could do is they could follow you, even if you didn't know they were following you,
Mm-hmm.
and just by following you and doing what you do, they would come to the same purification process. They would be led back to the Supreme Person. So there's so many situations where we don't have to, quote scriptures or say it, but how we act and how we treat people and how we, Vaishnava etiquette and these things that we have. So I just want to add that.
Thank you very much. That's really practical, because I was explaining Lord Chaitanya's instruction. Everywhere you go, everyone you meet, tell them about Bhagavad Gita and tell them about Krishna. But a lot of people we meet in the world, they're not ready to hear these things yet. And so better actually is through our character.
As a matter of fact, we could teach through prasadam and stuff like that, giving people, feeding people. Anyways, the act that we're doing is very important, yes.
Lakshmi Priya had something. So yeah, we're teaching them that there's a higher taste by giving prasad.
I was just going to say something similar. I was going to say sometimes someone will ask you a question and you just do your best to answer it, and what do you know? You're a guru now because you're pointing someone in the right way. Even giving advice to a friend, you're acting as a guru a little bit. We're all gurus.
Yes.
You know, whenever we help somebody with a little bit of good advice or a little bit of knowledge, it's a gradual process. We're all. It's not that you have to know everything before you can help anybody at all.
Yes, that's such an important point. We get crippled thinking, I have to know everything to speak about Krishna. No, just be honest. Yeah, I don't know certain things. Who does? Krishna. Nobody else does, actually. Krishna is the only one who knows everything. So, yeah, we're not Krishna. No problem. Be honest. Teach what you know and be honest about what you don't. Did you have anything more? Okay. Yes. Manjari Gopika.
Thank you, Prabhu. I always enjoy your classes.
Hare Krishna.
A couple of things. First of all, yes, just to piggyback on that, I've been practicing yoga for 12 years. I've been teaching it for like 5 or 6, and I remember when my yoga teacher, lineage has always been very important to me, and she wanted me to teach a workshop, and I told her, no, this was a couple years ago, I was like, no, I can't. You know, the only workshops people go to are arm balance workshops, and I haven't been teaching long enough to do an arm balance workshop. And she's like, I didn't ask you to teach an arm balance workshop. She said, you only have to be the 3rd grader to someone else's 2nd grader. So let's I want you to teach the standing poses, you know. So I had this idea that I had to have all of this knowledge in order to give a workshop, but I didn't. I just had to share the knowledge I already had on a certain level. And so it's important for us to be honest with ourselves about what we know and our source for it, not the Sadhguru source, but I mean, be able to say, hey, in Bhagavad Gita or in Bhagavatam or this Prabhu who was initiated by so-and-so said in his class, and then share not just our own speculation. And then the last thing I wanted to close with, because we only have a couple of minutes left, but you promised that you would share how people can develop at the beginning of your class, develop a taste for hearing Bhagavatam, because I have been really enjoying going to Bhagavatam class regularly, and I'm sitting here going, I don't know how I got to this place, that I really am loving hearing it. So I'd like to know your ideas.
Yes. Well, there's a verse in 3rd canto, Lord Kapila Dev says, Satam prasangan mama virya samvido, that Satam prasangan, in the association of devotees, Mama Virya, my pastimes, Lord Kapila, who is Krishna, he says, Bhavanti Hrit Karna Rasayana Kata, that when we hear about Krishna's activities, in the association of those who like to hear, then it's very pleasing to our heart and to our ears. And then, amazingly, he says, Tajjoshanad Ashu Apavarga Vartmani, that very quickly, by this process, on the path of liberation, Shraddha will develop faith, Ratir will develop taste, Bhakti will develop devotion, Anukramishyti, one step after the next. So the beginning is being with those who like to hear. That's the secret. And because you all like to hear, you can share that taste with others just by coming and listening attentively, by asking nice questions, giving comments, hopefully giving classes of your own. And actually, you will be able to transmit your taste to others. So I really appreciate all of your kind attention. I hope you all develop more and more taste for Srimad Bhagavatam with every passing day. And all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Jai. Jai. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Haribo. Jai. Hare Krishna.